Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Anastasia Chopelas for another episode of Raise Your Frequency. And what I mean by frequency, so I'm a scientist, and that means, and I also studied vibrations of matter at very high pressures and temperatures, and sometimes even cold temperatures. And what that means is I would look to see what would happen to what is actually vibrating in a crystal on under those different conditions. So that's what frequency means to me, is whatever it was vibrating at, and each vibration that was inherent in the crystal would show up on my spectrometer. And what a spectrometer is, it's basically a prism in a box, and it spreads the light out and you can see what colors are there. That's basically what it is. So it's a very nerdy thing to do. I know. Hi, Yolanda. So it's a very nerdy thing to do, but it actually started me to question when a lot of people would say, oh, let's get our frequency up. Let's get our, what do they call it? Waves or something. It just didn't make any sense. Or let's get our energy up. And so I started looking through literature, and I found that there have been a number of studies that have shown that the frequency that you emit, especially from your heart and all of your pores, basically, you have these photons. Photons are little packets of light that come out, and they're registered by instruments, and they have done this on a number of people. And they found that people that had that were happy and healthy and in vibrant relationships and things like that, they found that they would vibrate, or they would emit photons at a much higher wavelength, or a much shorter wavelength or higher frequency than people that were sick and sad. And they quantified this well. What quantified means is that they actually use an instrument to measure it. And the measurement went something like this. So if you're vibrating at 70 to 80 megahertz, so a hertz is 1 beat per second, and a megahertz is 1,000,000 beats per second. And so that means it's 70 to 80 million beats per second that we're sending out these photons. And when we're healthy and happy. And when we start getting sick, like if you have a cold and you're depressed, you start dropping down into the 60 and then 50 range. People with cancer, especially stage 4, is in the 30 to 40 range. And people that are on the verge of dying are down in the 20 range. So it's really important for your health and your happiness to bring those levels up. And I've developed practices. I've learned it from other people. I have kind of gleaned it myself just from my own practices that are really, really, really quick to actually use. The first one, and you'll hear this from many other people, especially people that are into yoga and meditation, that breath is really important. But what's important about it, the scientific aspect of it, is if your brain takes 3 inputs, and if your brain is processing 3 inputs at once, it brings you into the present moment very, very quickly. So the breath I like to do is to focus on an image, like I'm focusing on the camera here right in front of me, so I can be looking directly at you. And if I focus on the image and I start thinking about feeling the breath as it comes into my body, and as I bring it in, I'm breathing in through my belly. In other words, not just raising my chest, raising and dropping my chest for breath, but actually raising and lowering the abdominal area for breath. Then you're pulling your diaphragm down and you're bringing in a much deeper breath. And you imagine as you feel it come into your lungs, you're also feeling it come into your whole body. So there's 2 inputs, right? Focus your eyes and focus on the feeling, and then you count. And when you're counting, you're occupying another part of your brain. And when you do those three things, you drop away all of your troubles, you drop away everything that's a problem, you drop away everything, and you just become you with the universe, basically. And by doing this 1 or 2 minutes every morning, which I do, and you can do it while you're walking, you can do it while you're washing the dishes, you can do it while you're preparing your breakfast, because that'll occupy another part of your brain. And when you do that, you can even alleviate pain. Let's say you've got pain somewhere, like your joints hurt or you have a headache. By doing this longer, you can alleviate pain. And what that does is that is one step for raising your frequency. And it takes no time at all, really, because you can multitask while you're doing it. In fact, it's better when you multitask because you're occupying as much of the brain input, input through the ears, the eyes, your nervous system, everything. You're blocking all of that. The second way that I do really quickly every morning is when I wake up, I smile. And I even smile and I say, I am so glad I am here. Thank you, God, or thank you, universe, for allowing me to be here in this physical experience. And as my 86-year-old dad says every morning when he looks in the mirror, he goes, so far, so good. And it's so adorable when he says it because he's been through a very long trials and tribulations with a 45-year condition that my mom had, and that he had to pick up the slack for things that he couldn't do. And especially at the end, he was so upset over how ill she had gotten that he had a stroke, even though he didn't have high blood pressure or any other obvious problems. Every time he went to the doctor, he was still healthy. So that stress, if he had gotten up in the morning when he was all upset over my mom and smiled and took some deep breaths, it would have really helped him not have that stroke. And then the last thing that I do is I do a process of cutting cords or letting go. So being a healer or being someone that people depend on, whether you are a boss or you run a company or you have clients, you're a healer yourself, or you have a small business, it doesn't matter. They will, anytime you have interactions, it could be your kids, it could be your parents, it could be your spouse. Every time you have people interactions and they depend on you in some way or they need you in some way, they will find some way to energetically connect you and even energetically sap your strength. And so the third way that I do to help raise my own frequency and get into a place where I don't feel so burdened is to cut cords. And for those of you not watching, some of you will be hearing this somewhere on a podcast, let's say. You just take your hand and you start above the top of your head in front of you and you chop down 3 times all the way down to as far down as your arm can go, making sure that you go past the top of your legs or your perineum, that area, and you just chop down 3 times and you bunch up the cords that you just cut and you throw them down a 50-foot deep hole or farther and just clap your hands to clean your hands off. So clapping is a good way to clean your hands off. And then you don't forget the back is you pull everything off the back and you pull them all forward and chop down 3 times and drop those down too. And when I started telling that to other people that dealt with a lot of clients, especially other shaman healers and those, and I said, do this every morning. And one of them came back and said, yes, I leave a lot of energetic and spiritual fertilizer all over the place. And I thought that was so appropriate because you feel lighter and you can pull your shoulders back and stand up straight. and help the energy flow up and down your body. So raising your frequency is a really, really important to promote your health and your own well-being. And when you do this, other people will notice that this is happening for you. So when you do this, they'll be automatically attracted to you, and they'll want to have something that you're having, right? They'll want to know what's your big secret. And when you do these 3 things, and I'll give you a bonus tip, you'll know that when you do these 3 things, because it doesn't take any extra time in the morning. You can just cut the cords while you're walking to the bathroom first thing in the morning, and you can smile and say, I'm so happy I'm here, and thank you, I'm so grateful I am. And the last thing is make sure you're smiling while you're doing it. And so here's the bonus tip. I'll give you 2 bonus tips. Every day I take a shower with a handful of salt. So I have a big bag of salt. I use sea salt in the bathroom. It doesn't have to be the expensive pink Himalayan. It can just be sea salt. And I just dip, and I have a handful of salt in my hand. And as I step into the shower, I let it get a little bit wet. You don't need to use it as a scrub, but some people do. They say that they like how fresh their skin feels, and I just start at the top and I start, working all over my body. I just put the salt everywhere and all the way down my legs, and then I just let the shower wash it off. And I just did it this morning. Can you tell that I'm high frequency? And so I just wash it off, and I always feel better, especially because I was at a meeting all weekend. There were 200 people, even though there were relatively high frequency people, there were 200 people with a lot of frenzied energy. And I made sure that I showered and washed my hair every day with a lot of salt in order to, and you can do it in the bath. Pound of water to a pound of salt, not a pound of water, pound of salt to a big bathtub full of water will help clean up your energy and keep your frequency up. Because keeping your frequency up means you'll be more attractive to other people. It also means that it'll help raise your own frequency that you emit out, which is telling us that your body is healthier and happier, because we don't want to get in the way. And the interesting thing is that people with much more active minds have a much higher frequency than those that don't. So having an active mind is also like, if you go on to Real Age or some of those other places where they have brain activities, just having that active mind. Like I like to do a little word puzzle every morning. It takes a few minutes, but it always gets my synapses firing first thing in the morning. So I gave you 2 bonuses. So if you have any questions, I'm always here to answer them. I'd be happy to answer any questions on any topic that you want. But my message always is to help people feel better, to spread hope to people that feel that their condition, whatever it is incurable. And just by being upbeat and cheerful, you can cure the worst things. This was in the news when Robin Cousins wrote his book about healing cancer from watching Laurel and Hardy movies and lots of funny movies and laughing like crazy. And so I found a few comedy shows that I enjoy, and when I want a good laugh, I go on, and the dialogue sometimes is very smart and very hilarious. So I really enjoy having a good laugh, right? So I am so happy you're here, and I'm so happy I'm here too, because I get to experience another day. A lot of people that are my age aren't here anymore, and when I go into my high school yearbook and go onto my high school website, there's always in memoriam, and there are countless people that have already passed from illness, heart attacks, and so on. So I'm just so glad to be here and experience this beautiful earth with everybody else. So that's all for today, and you have a great day, and remember to raise your frequency. Thank you so much.